r/AskReddit. Tour guides of Reddit. What's the worst thing a tourist has ever done under your supervision? About 15 years ago, I worked as a deckhand on a line of boats that took people out to Fort Sumter. The trip was about an hour each way. One day, we were about halfway there, and two teenagers decided it would be fun to jump off and try to swim to shore. This is in Charleston Harbor, which has a pretty solid tidal current, lots of boat traffic, and probably more sharks than one would like to think about. We ended up having to perform a water rescue on them, then continued on to the fort, with the Coast Guard coming and picking them up. All in all, an extreme act of stupidity. Led a scuba diving tour. While signing the safety waivers and all that, one very old man kept telling us that he had a DNR, do not resuscitate. We plainly told him that we are not bound to a DNR, and if he passed out for any reason we would attempt to resuscitate by our safety training. Pretty much all the divers are assuming this guy's gonna kill himself down there, prob spit out the reg, and go quietly into the night. Dive happens. Pretty much everyone is hawkeyed on this guy. I see him go behind a large coral head and lay down in the sand and spit out his reg. He is only at about 60 feet, so I grab him and wrestle him to the surface. He will not take my backup regulator, so I slam it against his mouth and purge air into his face. We get to the surface, and he is fighting me non-stop trying to pull all of his gear off. I throw a very hard punch to his jaw and knock him out. Actually trained to do this during dive rescues, to keep the panicked person from killing you too. 3 weeks later, and he tries to sue my dive shop and myself personally. TLDR, guy tried to kill himself. I used to do vineyard and garden tours for a pretty well-known winery. I had a lady ask to see any male at vines we had, so I walked her over, and she proceeded to dump ash all over them and yell, "We love you, Nana. Rest in peace." Needless to say, you are not allowed to dump human remains on food goods. I'm a bush pilot in Alaska and occasionally do glacier air tours if my boss asks. I'm not a fan of doing tours. One day I'm doing a glacier tour and had probably 7 people on board, and the dude sitting next to just looks at me and says I'm the captain now and yanks the plane 30 degrees to the right and then lets go and laughs, saying he was just kidding. There was yelling to follow via my Used to be a tour guide at a primate sanctuary with a strict no touching policy. At the end of the tour there's a suspension bridge. Tourists go first, guide goes last as per the rules. I always warn the tourists that the other side is the territory of a Hanuman Langa, and he doesn't fuck around. Keep your distance, etc. He doesn't attack people out of nowhere, but he likes showing his teeth and screaming, which scares tourists. Anyway, one tour I get to the other side of the bridge, and a tourist got bitten. He says a monkey just bit him out of nowhere. Asked the other tourists. No, he tried to fucking pet the Hanuman. Dumbus got what he deserved. On an open-top tour bus in London, woman tries to dangle her toddler over the railing, then starts saying she's going to complain to my manager when I told her to stop. Caught her doing it again, and company policy said that anyone endangering their kids like that was to be removed from the tour, so the driver had to come up and march her off. She still insisted she did nothing wrong. Like, she literally had the kid's feet on the side rail of the moving bus and was just holding him loosely round the waist. One low-hanging tree branch, of which there were many on the route, and that kid was gone. Worked at an aquarium. This dude arrived in the Amazon exhibit room featuring the tank where every fish in it can hurt you, and promptly started dangling his sister's kid over the exhibit. I immediately stepped up to him and pushed the kid back from over it, firmly explaining that this wasn't allowed and that I'd have to call security. Thank God, the kid's mother was on my side and started tearing into the man. It took her 5 minutes of no, that was absolutely not appropriate, for him to get the message that he'd seriously fucked up. Some people never do get the whole pointy venomous fish bad, no dangling kids thing. Was on a tour in New Orleans. Guy gets drunk and basically makes a fool of himself and slaps his partner. Everyone else on the tour is like whoa, not cool, take a hike. GF leaves with him. Next morning we are all on the bus waiting to roll out to the next destination and we are not moving. 30 minutes later we are all getting pissed off. Then the couple get on the bus looking sheepish. By the next stop we learn the drunk guy ran a bath at the hotel. passed out and it flooded the bathroom and 4 floors below into the hotel lobby. The hotel wouldn't let them leave without paying thousands of dollars. Karma for him. Not a tour guide, but was doing an English language camp for foreign kids. Took the kids on a day trip to London, which involved going up the London Eye. While in the queue, one of the kids started shouting that he had a bomb in his bag and he was going to blow everyone up. Almost got all 20 kids in the group kicked out. Somewhat relevant, there's a small hill on a pedestrian footpath outside my university. Once, I witnessed a Segway tour attempt to use this path. The first Segway slowed to a stop as it reached the top of this hill. The second Segway sped up in an attempt to make it over and crashed into the first Segway. One by one, each Segway crashed into the one in front of it, toppling over each other. The pathway now has a no bikes or Segways sign. I worked at a living history farm museum. I had a kid that was climbing on stuff the whole tour in the farmhouse and trying to get behind the smith in the blacksmith shop during a demo. After the tour, when people are allowed to roam the grounds, I hear his mom screaming and look over to the barn and this kid has climbed the fence into the field with our longhorn oxen and is trying to poke them with a stick. I walk over and calmly told him to get out of the field before our lazy oxen decide they've had enough, but this jackoff decides to look me in the eye and smack Ted on the ass with the stick, like it's a riding crop. Ted, bless him, just kinda jumps a little and whips his head around with a WTF dude look on his face. But seeing as he's a longhorn, he just wipes this kid out with one of his horns when he turned his head. Kid goes flying into the dirt and is having a meltdown. Mom is freaking out. I'm like, dude, get the hell out of the pen before Ted actually gets mad. So this kid is crying and trying to climb the fence out of the field and Bill, who has been watching this whole thing, waits until the kid is almost over the fence and walks up to him and nudges him in the ass with his nose and pushes him off the top of the fence. It was everything I could do to keep from laughing. Kid was fine. Ted was fine, but the kid and his mom were promptly kicked out of the museum. Their dad and little sister were allowed to stay because she was well behaved and was just enjoying petting the goats at the petting zoo. So since the kid had to leave, but his sister didn't, there was a temper tantrum in the parking lot that could be heard all the way to the other side of the farm. But the oxen got some extra grain that night, so I guess they won in the end. I'm in the middle of talking and someone's phone rings. Okay, that happens sometimes, and usually they'd just cancel the call or step outside. Nope, this guy answers the call and starts talking on the phone, only a few meters from where I'm standing. I think, oh, he'll just quickly explain he's busy and end the call. Nope. He starts a conversation. The rest of the group glare at him, and I'm put in an awkward position because my workplace put a huge emphasis on politeness. So I suggest to him to continue his call in the hallway, just outside the room we were in, to which he replied, no, I'm fine here, and went back to his phone conversation. I'm doing my best to talk to the rest of the group, about 25 people, but he's so loud. Eventually this Chinese woman yells across the room at him, shut up, we want to listen to the lady, not you, which worked. But I just couldn't imagine the nerve to ruin everyone's experience like that, cause you're too selfish to talk on the phone outside. Also, the place I worked allowed photos, but had a strict no photos of the staff rule for privacy reasons. I always explained this at the start and 99% of people were cool. One day I had a particularly happy snapper who got right up in a staff member's face to take a photo, like I'm taking centimeters from his face to take a photo. The staffer was just some rando middle-aged white dude, so I'm not sure why the fascination, but he was livid. It's like I saw it happen in slow motion, so couldn't do anything to stop it. That guy was removed from the tour. I once was a tour guide in high school for a group of young Chinese students coming to the rural US on a sort of fresh air trip. They told us beforehand that we had to keep the kids away from water because apparently parents don't value swimming lessons in China and there is such little open swimmable water that no one learns on their own. We were also told that the kids think swimming happens naturally, like if you go into water, you'll immediately start swimming. Anyways, one of our excursions was to a local reservoir and the plan was to hike up a hill nearby to overlook the reservoir lake, get a few photos, and then leave. When we got to the top, it started pouring rain, like I had never seen before. I'm talking so much rain you can't see 5 feet in front of you. Then lightning starts striking the lake, and I'm still trying to keep it cool, even though I had never been so close to lightning before. The students were taking it well and laughing, which was good, until they started running directly for the lake and jumping. Apparently they had also never learned about electricity conducting through water, so I'm freaking out and start pulling them out of the water. They weren't in very far, and a couple of them complain that their phones were wet in the rain. No one got hurt, but it was a crazy day. We got back on the bus and the kids started drinking liquor in the back. They ranged ages 9 to 16, and I had to bust them for that too. TL. Doctor, apparently Chinese kids think swimming will just happen if you go in water, especially lightning struck water. I'd love it if you liked and subscribed.